I sit in my favorite armchair and stare at my hands. They look so fragile now, the skin stretched thin, veins visible like delicate threads, spotted with the marks of time. 68 years have left their trace, and yet today, for some reason, the weight of age feels heavier than usual. Perhaps it's the silence of this massive house pressing in, echoing the emptiness that comes from living alone. I bought this Peoria mansion 32 years ago, a 3-story colonial during the early days of Weatherby Pharma's success. Back then, Marilyn and I had dreams of a bustling household, of laughter spilling through hallways, of a family large enough to fill the rooms with noise and warmth. But fate had other plans. Only Beatrice came, and Marilyn was gone 12 years ago. Since then, the mansion has been haunted by its own quiet, each room a reminder of lives half-lived. I rise slowly, letting the cane bear most of my weight, and move to the window. The garden outside, Marilyn's pride, remains, tended by a gardener twice a week. Once, I would kneel among the flowers myself, hands deep in the soil, feeling the rhythm of growth beneath my fingers. Lately, my joints complain more often, and I leave the work to others. My gaze drifts to the driveway, where an old Volvo rests, its paint dulled by years, but its engine steady and true. Friends often ask why I cling to this relic instead of buying a new car. Why fix what still works? I smile faintly at the thought. 5 years ago, I sold Weatherby Pharma to a massive conglomerate for a sum that could be measured in 9 zeros. Since then, I've lived modestly, reinvesting in research and quietly funding projects that mattered to me. I remember those early nights in a cramped lab, counting pennies, taking loans at impossible rates, testing formulas for an arthritis drug that would eventually make my first million. Beatrice was a child then, and I missed school events, birthdays, family dinners. Marilyn never complained. She understood the sacrifice. Beatrice, less so. The shrill ring of the phone breaks. My reverie. Her name flashes on the screen. Beatrice. I feel a flicker of warmth, despite the years of strained interaction. She rarely calls without reason. "Hi, Beatrice," I say, keeping my voice light. "Hello, Dad," she replies, clipped, formal. "How's your health?" "Not bad for my age." "How about you? How are the kids?" "They're fine," she answers shortly. There's a pause. Then she continues, "It's my birthday on Saturday. We're having a small party. If you're free, come by." Her words hold no real warmth, only the faint echo of obligation. I recognize the tone instantly, the politeness of duty, not affection. "Of course, darling. Thank you for inviting me." I can hear the papers she shuffles. "Daddy, about Rainer? His new project, the food delivery tech?" she asks. I stiffen slightly. "I remember," I reply carefully. "Rainer Sainsbury, her husband, a man of charm and vanity, moving from one overambitious business idea to the next, spending money they didn't truly have. We found investors, but we're short on seed money. 40,000, she says. "Beatrice, we've discussed this. I'm not funding Rainer's ventures. I can review the plan, offer advice, but not money." Her voice flares immediately. "What are you, pathetic? You have millions lying around and your only daughter has to pinch pennies?" "It's not about the money," I start, but she interrupts. "Principles, huh? Rainer has to learn responsibility. I thought you'd help family. But I see. You care more about your principles than us." And with that, the line goes dead. The familiar beep leaves a bitter taste. I wander down to my office, opening the drawer where my checkbook rests. Years of careful planning, wealth spread across banks and funds, all intended to secure Beatrice and her children's future. But now, doubt gnaws at me. She grew up seeing wealth as a right, not a responsibility. To her, money simply exists, to be spent. An idea flickers, a wild, perhaps cruel, but instructive thought. I write a check for $7 million, an amount that could change her life, and place it inside a book I recently read, True Wealth: How Money Changes Family. Relationships. I wrap the book in plain paper, tie it with a simple ribbon. It's a test, a lesson, perhaps my final attempt to shape her understanding. I stand at the window, watching the sun dip low, remembering how 35 years ago I started from nothing. Now I have wealth, security, freedom, and yet, I wonder if I've failed in the most important realm, my family. The book rests on the table, a silent promise, a quiet challenge. Saturday arrives clear and unexpectedly warm. I leave early, my old Volvo gliding through Peoria's streets, carrying the modestly wrapped book on the passenger seat. Beatrice's neighborhood gleams with prosperity, manicured lawns, upscale homes, new cars. And there, in the driveway, a new black Audi sparkles in the sunlight, glaringly out of place for a family who had recently asked me for $40,000. I park beside it, stepping out, feeling the contrast keenly. I could buy dozens of such cars, yet my habits have always been simple. This, I realize, is how she sees me, as a man unwilling to enjoy his fortune, miserly in appearance. I straighten the package in my hand and walk to the door. Music and laughter spill out bright and loud. I press the bell. Reiner answers, all charm and perfect hair, a salesman's smile plastered across his face. Cashes, good to see you. Come in, everyone's here. His tone is joyous, but the edge beneath is unmistakable. We've never been friends. He sees wealth, opportunity. I see arrogance, entitlement. Inside, 20 guests mingle. Beatrice stands in a circle, elegantly dressed, her laughter light but measured. She sees me, offers a strained smile, and moves over. "Daddy, you made it," she says, kissing my cheek, a hint of wine on her breath. "Happy birthday, darling." I place the gift on the table by the door. "I'll open it later with everyone," she says, returning to her guests. Then she glances back, eyes assessing. "Dad, that jacket, it's from Mom's time, isn't it? You know, at your age, it might look outdated." I smile faintly. "Yes, it's old, but well-made and comfortable." Beatrice shakes her head, rolling her eyes. "And that old Volvo, people might think I don't care for you, or that you—" She stops, realizing she can't finish the thought. I understand her meaning. Poor or frugal, it doesn't matter. I shake my head lightly, letting it pass. The room hums with celebration, oblivious to the quiet lesson waiting in the book by the door. The unspoken test that could change everything, we'll think, I said calmly. "I like my car." "Of course you do." She smiled, strained. "Okay, I'm going to go say hello to Hugo and Ruth. They just got here." I was alone, and I took a glass of mineral water and watched the festivities. Beatrice and Reiner's house was tasteful, but overly ostentatious. New furniture from expensive collections, original paintings on the walls, designer knickknacks. Everything screamed of money which they didn't really have. My grandchildren, Ethan and Olivia, 14 and 12 years old, were sitting in the corner of the living room staring at their phones. I headed over to them. "Hey guys, how's school going?" Ethan barely looked up from the screen. "Fine, Grandpa." Olivia was a little more welcoming. "Hey, Grandpa." "I'm fine, thanks. What are you working on?" I try to look at their phone screens. "Just a game," muttered Ethan. "And I have a new TikTok. Do you want to see it?" Olivia offered. I sat down next to her, and she showed me a short video of her dancing to a popular song. The video was professionally edited with different effects. "Impressive. Did you do it yourself?" "Yes. My dad bought me a new iPhone with a cool camera and an editing program," she said proudly. A brand new iPhone, the latest model. Another unnecessary expense. What about you, Ethan? Still interested in chemistry? I asked my grandson, remembering how a year ago he enthusiastically told me about school experiments. Not really. He shrugged his shoulders, not taking his eyes off the game. Too bad. You had good talent. You know, when I was your age, I knew for sure I wanted to be a pharmacist. Grandpa, no offense, but you already told me that. Ethan interrupted me. I don't have to decide what to be yet. We have a different time. I became sad. I had once dreamed of a close connection with my grandchildren, perhaps even of one of them following in my footsteps. But they grew up in a completely different world with different values. Soon, Reiner came up to us with a glass of whiskey. Cassius, don't monopolize the children's attention. He patted me jokingly on the shoulder. Come on, I want to show you something. He led me into his office, a small room with a massive desk and a leather chair. On the walls were pictures of Reiner with various famous people, mostly taken at public events, but giving the impression of close acquaintance. What do you think of my new business idea? He pulled out a tablet and opened the presentation. It's a revolutionary food delivery concept using artificial intelligence to predict customer orders. I looked through a few slides. Beautiful graphs, loud promises, minimal specifics. And how exactly would this artificial intelligence work? I asked. Reiner hesitated. Well, it's a complex system of algorithms. We have a technical specialist who deals with this part, and the competitors. The food delivery market is already crowded with big players with billion-dollar budgets. That's the point, Reiner enthused. We offer a niche product that the big companies have missed out on. By the way, Cases, I've always wanted to ask. His voice became confidential. How did you manage to build such a successful business from scratch? Some kind of secret ingredient? I looked at him carefully. Over the years, Reiner had never really been interested in my business experience, only in the money the business brought in. No secrets, Reiner. Hard work, a willingness to risk your own money, not other people's, and a deep understanding of your industry. Yeah, sure. He nodded with the look of a man who'd heard exactly what he expected. But there has to be something else, right? Some luck, connections. Perhaps the most important thing is honesty with yourself. Being able to recognize when an idea isn't working and move on rather than clinging to it. Reiner was obviously disappointed in my answer. Well, that's wise. He finished his whiskey. Come on, we'll be at the table soon. The dinner table was set with excessive luxury, expensive. China, crystal, fresh flowers. Everything looked like a set for a photo shoot in a magazine about luxury living. I was seated next to Beatrice, which was surprising. Usually at family reunions, I was kept out of the spotlight. When everyone was seated, Reiner stood up and raised his glass. I would like to propose a toast to my beautiful wife, Beatrice. Happy birthday. You are the heart of our family, and we are all eternally grateful for your love and support. The guests applauded, and Beatrice brightened up. I noticed her furtively glancing at me as if testing my reaction. The dinner passed in a relaxed atmosphere. The guests discussed the latest movies, travel, politics. I was mostly silent, only occasionally inserting short comments. However, everything changed when the conversation turned to the recent scandal with affamous billionaire accused of tax evasion. Frankly, I understand him. Sidone of Reiner's friends, Pierce, an investment broker. Taxes in this country are lootable. The rich already pay a disproportionate amount. I agree, Reiner seconded. The rich create jobs, drive the economy. The government should encourage that, not punish it. I couldn't take it. Paying taxes is not a punishment but a citizen's duty, especially if you've accomplished a lot in this country. All eyes were on me. Dad, don't start your lectures on civic duty. Beatrice rolled her eyes. We're just discussing. I'm just giving my opinion, I replied calmly. Society has given us the opportunity to be educated, to use the infrastructure, to live in safety. Paying taxes is the least we can do. But cases, Pierce interjected. There's a difference between paying your fair share and outright robbery. Some of the stakes are absurd. It's not the stakes, it's the principle. I objected. When I started the business, I got a government research grant. Without it, Weatherby Pharma might never have existed. Now that I've succeeded, isn't it fair to give back to the community some of what it gave me? Beatrice laughed nervously. Oh, Papa and his principles. Sometimes I think you love your principles more than you love people. Her words hurt more than she had realized. Principles define a man, Beatrice. Without them, we're just consumers. What's wrong with enjoying life? Beatrix's friend Lorraine entered the conversation. We only live once. If you can buy a nice car, nice clothes, why not? Nothing wrong if you can afford it, I replied involuntarily, looking at Beatrix's new expensive dress. My daughter immediately understood the hint. Not everyone finds it necessary to drive a 20-year-old car and wear the same jacket for decades, Daddy. Some of us want to live in the present, not be stuck in the past because of some strange stinginess. It's not about being stingy. It's about being smart with money. I tried to speak calmly. Money is a tool, not an end in itself, says the man who has spent his whole life doing nothing but earning money. Beatrix raised her voice. You missed half of my school events because you were busy with your company, and now you're teaching me that money isn't important? There was an awkward silence at the table. Reiner tried to lighten the mood. I think there's a time for everything, and now it's time for dessert. Olivia, please call Elaine and have her bring the cake. Soon, the mood at the table improved, especially after the arrival of the impressive three-tiered cake. After dessert, the guests moved back into the living room where Beatrice began opening presents. One by one, she unwrapped the beautifully wrapped boxes. A designer scarf, a set of French cosmetics, a bottle of expensive champagne. She admired each gift, thanking the givers. Finally, it was my turn to receive my modestly wrapped gift. This is from Daddy, Beatrice said, taking the rectangular package in her hands. She unfolded the paper and pulled out a book. True Wealth: How Money Changes Family Relationships. Beatrix's face showed a look of bewilderment followed by disappointment. A book? She turned it over as if expecting to find something else about family relationships and money. I recently read it myself, I said. I thought you might find it interesting. There was a barely audible whisper in the room. Beatrice looked at the book with her lips pressed together. Thank you, Papa. Very informative. Her voice sounded strained. I saw Rainier behind her back, barely containing his laughter as he glanced at his friends. Olivia and Ethan looked at their grandfather's modest gift in bewilderment, obviously comparing it to other expensive presents. Beatrice held the book in her hands, and I could see her fingers twitching slightly. The guest continued to talk softly, but there was a palpable tension in the air. I cleared my throat, hoping to diffuse the tension. This is a really good book. The author analyzes in detail how financial issues affect family relationships and offers interesting strategies. Dad Beatrice interrupted me, her voice sounding deceptively calm. Are you serious? On my birthday, you're giving me a book about how I should treat money. Rainer, who was standing next to her, tried to smooth things over. Darling, I'm sure your father meant well. Books are always useful. No. She turned sharply to her husband. I want to understand. Is this some kind of a hint? Daddy, do you think I have problems with money or family relations? I could feel the atmosphere in the room rapidly heating up. Some of the guests began to look at each other awkwardly, while others pretended to be engrossed in their own conversations, trying to ignore the unfolding conflict. Beatrice, I said as gently as I could, it's just a book I found interesting. I thought it might be useful to you. It has a lot of deep thoughts about how money affects relations between people. Oh, Deep thoughts? Beatrice grinned bitterly. And you think I lack deep thoughts? That I don't know how to handle money or relationships? Her voice was getting louder, and now all the guests were looking at us. I noticed Ethan and Olivia frozen against the far wall, clearly embarrassed by their mother's behavior. That's not what I meant, I tried to explain. This book is just I know. What you meant? Beatrice exclaimed, standing up abruptly. All my life you have done nothing but evaluate me. And all my life I have not been good enough for your standards. The guests were now openly watching our altercation. Some looked shocked, others intrigued, as if they were watching a reality show. René put his hand on Beatrice's shoulder in an attempt to calm her down, but she shook him off. Beatrice, let's discuss this later, I asked, feeling a growing awkwardness. Today is your holiday, and oh, now you're worried about my holiday, she interrupted. Where was that worry when you missed my birthdays as a kid? When you missed my graduation because you had an important meeting? When you forgot to congratulate me on Ethan's birth because you were at a conference? I was confused. Some of the accusations were fair. I had indeed missed some important events in her life because of work, but others. I didn't remember missing her graduation or forgetting to congratulate her on the birth of her grandson. Beatrice, I don't remember. Of course you don't remember. She was almost shouting now. To you it was insignificant trifles, but to me it was my whole life. And now that you're finally retired, when you've had time to think about your family, you come here and try to teach me how to have a relationship, how to handle money. She picked up the book she was still holding and shook it in the air. Do you know what I think of your advice about your life lessons? And before anyone could react, Beatrice threw the book to the floor with force. It fell with a thud, cracking open in the middle, exactly where the check was hidden. Beatrice, I exclaimed, rising from my seat. Don't you dare tell me off, she shouted, her face red with anger. All my life you've put your job, your money, your bloody principles before me, above my mom, above our family, and now you come into my house and try to teach me. There was a dead silence in the room. Even the music seemed to quiet down as if the sound system was also shocked by what was happening. I noticed a few guests discreetly pulling out their cell phones, apparently planning to escape at the first opportunity. Honey, please. Rainer tried to intervene, but Beatrice waved him away. No, let him know what I think. Let everybody know. She turned to me, tears of rage glistening in her eyes. Do you know that Mom cried every time you stayed late at work? That she felt abandoned while you built your precious empire, that I had to comfort her when I was 10 years old? Those words hit me like a physical blow. Marilyn never told. Me, she felt abandoned. She had always supported my efforts, understood that I was working for our future. Did her smile hide such pain? And did my 10-year-old daughter see things I didn't? Yay, I didn't know, I mumbled, feeling the ground slipping, away from under my feet. Of course you didn't know. You never saw anything but your flasks and formulas, Beatrice went on. And then when your company became successful, when you had money, you didn't even let us enjoy that success. You continued to live like a cheapskate in the same old house, same old car. I took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. Beatrice, I understand how you feel, but it's not fair. I've always taken care of you and your mom. Yes. I've worked hard, but everything I've done for our family. Don't you dare say you did it for us, she interrupted. You were doing it for yourself, for your ego, for your sense of superiority. You can't even admit now that you've been a bad father and husband. Her words hurt me deeper than she could have imagined. Was this really what she'd thought of me all these years? Was the image of a loving, though not always present father that I had painted for myself only my fantasy? I admit I wasn't always the perfect father, I said quietly. But I loved you and your mom more than anything in the world. I still do. You did? Beatrice laughed bitterly. You don't even know what love is. Love is not money in an account. It's not an expensive school. It's not paying for college. Love is presence, support, understanding, all the things you never had for us." I felt a lump come up to my throat. All my life I had believed that providing for my family financially was the epitome of love, that by sacrificing time with them for financial stability, I was making the right choice. But what if I've been wrong all along, and now that you're lonely? When you finally realized that money doesn't keep you warm at night, you remembered your family. Beatrice continued, decided to teach us about life. Give us a book about the importance of family relationships. You are the epitome of hypocrisy. I noticed that Ethan and Olivia looked completely shocked. They had never seen their mother in such a state. Reiner shifted nervously from foot to foot, not knowing how to intervene. The guests froze in awkward poses, clearly wishing they were anywhere but here. "Beatrice, let's continue this conversation in private," I suggested, trying to save the situation. "It's your party today, and I don't want to spoil it." "You've already ruined it," she exclaimed. "You always do. You know what? You're a disgrace to this family, a man who made millions but lost everything that really mattered." Those words seemed to pierce through me. The disgrace of the family is what my own daughter used to call me. "B, please calm down." Reiner tried to intervene again. "Don't tell me what to do," she snapped at her husband, then turned back to me. "I want you to leave now. You've ruined my birthday like you've ruined everything in my life." I stood thunderstruck. She had never spoken to me like that before. Even in our fiercest arguments, there was always a line we never crossed. But now that line had been blown away. "If this is what you really want," I started. "Yes, I do. Go away," she pointed to the door. I slowly rose from my chair, feeling the stares of everyone in the room. The silence in the room was Sothic. It was like cutting it with a knife. "I'm sorry for the way things turned out," I said, looking not only at Beatrix but at all the guests. "I apologize for causing this scene." I headed for the exit, passing an open book lying on the floor. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the check that had fallen out of it and was now lying nearby, partially hidden by the pages. I wanted to bend down and pick it up to show it to Beatrice. "Here, look what I really wanted to give you." But something held me back. Was it pride, resentment, or the sudden realization that she was right and money never solved our problems? Reiner walked me to the door, looking both embarrassed and strangely triumphant. "She'll calm down," he said, lowering his voice. "You know women and their emotions." I looked at him with distaste. This man didn't understand his wife at all if he thought it was just women's emotions. "Take care of her," was all I said as I stepped out onto the porch. The front door closed behind me, cutting me off from the noise of voices inside. I walked slowly to my car, feeling incredibly old and tired. Getting behind the wheel, I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I just sat there looking at my daughter's house through the windshield. After I left, the festivities at Beatrix's house continued. I could only imagine Reiner diffusing the situation by offering more champagne to the guests, turning the music up, pretending that nothing special had happened. A family scene that no one there would forget, but that everyone would try not to mention. And I drove home through the empty evening streets of Peoria, my head heavy with thoughts. My daughter's words echoed in my mind. "You are a disgrace to our family. You don't even know what love is." Every word was like a knife stab, and worst of all, I was beginning to think she was right. All my life he thought I was doing the right thing, working my ass off to provide for my family, saved and invested so Beatrice could have a secure future, paid for the best schools, college, helped with a down payment on a house. Isn't that what a loving father should do? But what if I was wrong all along? What if my understanding of a father's love was incomplete, distorted? What if in providing for my daughter's material needs, I had missed something far more important, her emotional needs? When I finally parked the car in front of my house, it was already dark. I walked into the empty hallway without turning on the lights and stood for a moment, listening to the silence. This big house had always seemed cozy to me, but tonight it felt like it was pressing with its emptiness. I went up to the study, poured myself some whiskey, a rare weakness for me, and went to the window. It overlooked the garden and the little pond that Marilyn loved so much. I tried to imagine what she would say now if she were alive. Would she support me or sided with her daughter? Do you know that Mom cried every time you stayed late at work? Is that really true? Did my wife, always, sound understanding and supportive, really suffer from my workaholism? And if so, why didn't she ever tell me about it? Or did she, but I didn't hear it? I remembered how once, coming home past midnight after an important negotiation, I found Marilyn sitting in the dark in the kitchen. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "Just can't sleep," she replied with a smile. But now, 25 years later, I suddenly saw something in her eyes that I hadn't noticed then. Longing and disappointment. How many more moments like this had I missed? How many unspoken pleas have you not heard? How many silent tears had I missed? I set the untouched whiskey on the table and sat back in my chair. My thoughts returned to the $7 million check left at Beatrix's house. Now, that decision seemed not just wrong, but ridiculous. What was I trying to prove? That money was more important than forgiveness and understanding. That you could buy your daughter's love while teaching her a lesson at the same time. I reached for the phone and dialed the bank's number. Despite the late hour, the customer service desk for privileged customers was open 24 hours a day. "Good evening, Mr. Weatherby," a polite female voice answered. "What can I do for you? I need to block a check. I said a check for $7 million made out today to Beatrix Sandsbury. Of course, sir. May I ask why it's being blocked?" I hesitated. "What am I supposed to say? That I had a fight with my daughter? That I changed my mind about giving her the money? That it was a stupid idea all along? The check is lost," I finally answered. "There is a risk that it could be found and cashed by an unauthorized person." "I understand, sir. One moment, please." While the operator processed the lockout, I pondered my decision. Was it revenge for Beatrix's cruel words, or was it an attempt to protect her from herself, and especially from Reiner, who would surely find a way to squander the money on his own dubious projects? Or was it an admission that money had never solved our problems and would not solve them now? "Done, Mr. Weatherby." The operator's voice brought me back to reality. "The check has been blocked. If it is presented for payment, the bank will refuse to release the funds." "Thank you," I said, and hung up. It was only now that I realized how tired I was. The emotional strain of the evening had sucked all the energy out of me. I went up to the bedroom, showered, and went tubed. But I couldn't sleep. Beatrice's face, contorted with anger, was before my eyes, and I replayed her words over and over in my head, trying to figure out where and when things had gone wrong. At the same time, at Beatrix's house, the party was coming to an end. Tasia, last guests were departing, leaving the hosts alone with the mess and the emotional aftertaste of the scandal. Elaine Jefferson had worked for Sainsbury's for 3 years. A 52-year-old widow with kind eyes and strong hands, she cleaned their house 3 times a week and occasionally helped with cooking for special occasions. Today, she stayed longer than usual to help with the cleanup after the holiday. When the last guest had left, Beatrice, still reeling from her argument with her father, went straight up to the bedroom, leaving Reiner to deal with the aftermath of the party. He briefly told Elaine that they would go to bed, and she would finish cleaning up and close the door on her way out. Elaine methodically cleaned the living room, collecting glasses, stacking plates, throwing away napkins. She had heard the quarrel between Beatrice and her father. It was impossible not to hear it, and sympathized with both of them. Mr. Weatherby had always seemed to her a good man, though a little severe, and Beatrice, well, she was a difficult character, but Elaine understood her. Sometimes parents and children just spoke different languages. As she swept the floor, she noticed the book still lying where Beatrice had left it. Elaine picked it up, about to put it back on the bookshelf, and then saw a piece of paper lying nearby. Bending over, she picked it up and froze in amazement. It was a check for $7 million made out to Beatrix Sansbury. Elaine blinked several times, unable to believe her eyes. The amount was so huge that it seemed unreal. She'd never in her life held a check for even $1,000, let alone millions. Her first impulse was to take the check to the owners immediately, but something stopped her. Beatrice was in such a state that she was unlikely to appreciate the intrusion. Besides, the check appeared to have fallen out of the book that Beatrice had so defiantly rejected. Perhaps it was part of some message from her father that she was unwilling to accept. After brief deliberation, Elaine decided that the best thing to do would be to put the check on the dresser in Beatrix's bedroom and leave a note. So, she did so, writing on the post-it note, "Found this next to a book in the living room. I think it's important, Elaine." Finished cleaning up. She quietly left the house, closing the door behind her. The next morning, Beatrice woke up with a headache and a heavy heart. The events of last night seemed like a nightmare, but she knew that everything had really happened. She had really made a scene in front of all the guests. She had really yelled at her father and kicked him out of the house, and now she had to live with the consequences. Rainer was already up, and from the sounds of it fiddling in the kitchen, Beatrice slowly got out of bed and wandered to the bathroom. After showering and brushing her teeth, she felt a little better, but the heaviness in her chest didn't go away. Walking back into the bedroom, she noticed a post-it on the dresser. Moving closer, Beatrice read Elaine's note and then saw the check. Her heart skipped a beat. $7 million from her father, in the very book she had so contemptuously rejected. Beatrice sank to the edge of the bed, unable to believe her eyes. It was incredible, unfathomable. Her father, whom she accused of being stingy, of lacking love, was planning to give her a gift of $7 million, and she didn't even give him a chance to explain. "Rainer!" she screamed. "Rainer, come here quickly!" Her husband ran into the bedroom looking worried. "What's wrong? Are you all right?" Beatrice silently handed him the check. Rainer's eyes widened when he saw the amount. "Is this real?" he whispered. Elaine found it next to the book Daddy gave her, Beatrice explained, feeling a lump in her throat. "He must have put it in there. I didn't even look at it." Rainer sat down beside her, still holding the check and looking at it as if he didn't trust his eyes. $7 million, he muttered. "Your father wanted to give you $7 million, and he didn't finish the sentence. But Beatrice understood, and she kicked him out, called him a disgrace to the family. She insulted him in front of all the guests." "My God, what have I done?" she whispered. Rainer didn't seem to hear her, completely absorbed in the check. "This will solve all our problems," he said. And there was almost reverence in his voice. "We'll be able to pay off the loans on the house and the car. I'll be able to launch my project without outside investors. We'll be able to send our kids to any college we want. Hell, we can buy a new house if we want to." Beatrix nodded, but her thoughts weren't about money. She was thinking about her father, about the pain she must have caused him, about how he had come home alone, not knowing that the check had fallen out of the book. What was he thinking now? What is he feeling? "I have to call Dad," she said, "apologize and thank him." Yeah, sure." Rainer nodded, still staring at the check. "But first, maybe we should put the money in an account just to keep it safe." Beatrice hesitated. On the one hand, she wanted to contact her father immediately. On the other hand, Rainer was right. It would be better to cash the check first, and then make the call. Besides, it would give her some time to collect her thoughts and decide what to say to her father. "Okay," she agreed. "Let's go to the bank first." They dressed quickly, ate a quick breakfast, and went to the bank. All the way, Reiner talked about how they would spend the money, made plans, dreamed aloud. Beatrice listened half-heartedly. Her thoughts were occupied with the forthcoming conversation with her father. At the bank, they were met by a friendly employee who, having learned about the purpose of their visit, led them to a separate office for important clients. Beatrice handed her the check, and the woman removed herself to begin the process. "Can you imagine? We'll be millionaires soon," Reiner whispered, squeezing his wife's hand. "Your father has given us a royal gift." Beatrice nodded, but a strange feeling was growing inside her. Why had her father decided to give her such a huge sum just now? And why in such a strange way? Hiding the check in a book. What was he trying to say? 15 minutes later, the employee returned, but her expression had changed. "Mrs. Sansbury, I'm sorry, but we can't cash this check," she said. "Why not?" Beatrice and Reiner asked at the same time. "The check has been blocked by the payer," the woman explained. "Mr. Weatherby contacted the bank last night and requested that the check be blocked, saying it had been lost." Beatrice felt the blood drain from her face. Her father had blocked the check. After their fight, after all the horrible things she'd said to him. "Are you sure?" Reiner asked, his voice shaking with frustration. "Could there be some mistake?" "No mistake, sir," the female employee replied firmly. "The lockout was registered in our system yesterday at 22 hours and 37 minutes. The check is invalid." Beatrice silently took the check and left the office, feeling everything inside her crumble. Not because of the loss of the money, though that was painful too, but because of the realization that she might have ruined her relationship with her father forever. Reiner caught up with her outside the bank. "Beatrice, wait. We have to talk to your father. Explain that there's been a misunderstanding. I'm sure he'll unblock the check when he finds out we found it." But Beatrice knew it wasn't a misunderstanding. Her father had blocked the check precisely because she had rejected his gift, insulted him, kicked him out of the house. He changed his mind about giving her the money, and she couldn't blame him. "Let's go home, Reiner," she said, quietly. "I need to think." All the way back, they were silent. Reiner was absorbed in his own thoughts, probably trying to figure out how to convince his father-in-law to unblock the check. Beatrice, on the other hand, was thinking about how stupid and ungrateful she had been, how she had let her old resentment and pride ruin what could have been a new beginning in their relationship with her father. When they got home, Beatrice went straight to the telephone. She needed to talk to her father to apologize, to explain. But when she dialed his number, all she heard were long beeps. Her father didn't answer. She tried again and again with the same result. "He's not picking up," she told Reiner, feeling the tears welling up. "He's just upset," her husband tried to comfort her. "Give him time to cool off. Maybe tomorrow." But Beatrice knew her father. He was not Eamon who forgave offenses easily. And what she'd done yesterday was more than an offense. It was a betrayal. She sank down on the couch holding a now useless check for $7 million, a symbol of a missed opportunity, a symbol of her own stupidity and arrogance. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew this check wasn't just a gift, it was a test she failed miserably. I stared out the window of my office, watching the gardener trim the rose bushes. The phone on my desk was blinking, showing 15 missed calls from Beatrice. 15 attempts to contact me in the last 2 days, but I wasn't ready to talk to her. Maybe. I never would be. After our fight at her birthday party, I'd hardly slept at all. My daughter's words echoed in my head, awakening memories, doubts, regrets. "You are a disgrace to our family." That phrase burned me from the inside out like acid. In the morning, I called my attorney, Harris, and set up an appointment. We needed to discuss changes to my will. The events of the last few days had convinced me that my earlier plan to leave the bulk of Beatrix's fortune had been a mistake. She wasn't ready for that kind of money. Perhaps she never would be. Harris arrived about noon, and we spent 3 hours discussing the details of the new will. I decided to divide my fortune into 3 parts. The first was a trust for my grandchildren Ethan and Olivia, with the stipulation that they would have access to the money only after the age of 30 and only if they received a college education. The second part is a fund to finance pharmaceutical research, especially the development of drugs for rare diseases, and only a small portion, about 5%, would be given to Beatrice just to give her basic financial security. When Harris left, I felt strangely relieved. It was as if making this decision had lifted some weight off me. I now knew for sure that my money would serve a good purpose, even if it didn't go to benefit my daughter. The doorbell rang, snapping me out of my musings. I wasn't expecting company, and I thought it was Harris again, forgetting some papers. But when I opened the door, there was Beatrice. She looked haggarded, her face pale, her eyes red, her hair disheveled. In her hand, she held the book I had given her and the unfortunate check. "Daddy," her voice shook, "we need to talk." I silently stepped aside, letting her into the house. We walked into the living room, and I gestured for her to sit down. I stayed standing, feeling a strange need to keep my distance. "I called you," she began. "Many times." "I know," I replied. "I needed time to think." Beatrice clutched the check, nervously, in her hands. "I found it," she said, holding it out to me. "Or rather, Ela found it and handed it to me. It was in the book you gave me." I nodded, not touching the check. Rayner and I drove to the bank, too. "She hesitated to cash it, but they told us you'd blocked it." "Yes," I confirmed. "I called the bank right after I got home from your birthday party." There was a long pause. Beatrice looked at me with pleading eyes, obviously waiting for an explanation, or maybe hoping I'd say I'd changed my mind and was ready to unblock the check. "Dad, I want to apologize for what I said at the birthday party. I was wrong. I said some terrible things that I regret now." I watched her carefully, trying to see the sincerity in her eyes. Was she truly sorry for what she'd said, or just for rejecting the $7 million check? "Are you apologizing for your words or for throwing away the book that had the check in it?" I asked bluntly. Beatrice flinched, as if I had hit her. "Yeah, I didn't know about the check when I threw the book away," she mumbled. "That doesn't answer my question," I pointed out. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I apologize for everything, Daddy. For being ungrateful, for not appreciating everything you did for me, for accusing you of things that, weren't always fair." I listened to her, but felt no relief or joy at this apology, perhaps because I didn't believe they were sincere, or more likely, because too much between us was broken, and a simple apology couldn't fix it. "Tell me honestly, Beatrice," I said, sitting down in the chair across from her. "If you hadn't found that check, would you have come to apologize?" She looked away, and the gesture was more eloquent than any words. "I thought about it," she said at last. "Maybe not right away, but I wouldn't have come," I finished for her. "Let's not lead to each other, Beatrice. You're here because of the check." She blushed, but didn't argue. "Okay. Yes, I'm here for the check, too. But that doesn't mean my apology is insincere. I'm really sorry for what I said, and I was amazed when I saw the check that you were willing to give me such a huge sum despite all our differences." I grinned bitterly. "That check was a test, Beatrice, and you failed it." "A check?" she asked in confusion. "Yes," I nodded. "I wanted to see what was more important to you, the money or our relationship. I wanted to see if you could appreciate not what I could give you financially, but what I was trying to pass on to you as a father experience, wisdom, and understanding of the value of money." Beatrice looked shocked. "Did you? You purposely chose to do it this way, hiding the check in the book, knowing I might not open it." "I was hoping you'd open the book. I answered. That you'd show at least a modicum of respect for my gift, even if it seemed strange or inappropriate. But you didn't just not open it. You threw it on the floor, called me a disgrace to the family, and threw me out of your house. She lowered her head, and I saw a tear roll down her cheek. I'm so sorry, Daddy. I behaved terribly. It wasn't just your behavior at the birthday party, I continued. It was just a symptom of a much deeper problem. 4 years, you've accused me of being too focused on money, of not giving you enough. Yet, you never tried to live within your means, always demanding more than you could afford. That's not fair, Beatrice objected, her voice again tinged with irritation. Rainer and I have had financial difficulties, but we've tried ... You bought a new car for $60,000, I interrupted. And a month before that, you'd asked me for $40,000 for Reiner's business. This isn't financial hardship, Beatrix. It's financial irresponsibility. She had no answer. So I continued, all me life I've worked to give you a better future. Yes, I may not have always been there physically, but I never stopped thinking about your well-being. And what did I get in return? Accusations of stinginess, of callousness, of being a disgrace to the family. That's not what I meant, Beatrice said quietly. I was upset, angry. That's exactly what you meant, I said firmly. And you know what? You're right about something. I was really too focused on work, on building wealth. Maybe I missed something important in my upbringing. But I never stopped, loving you and wishing you well. We both fell silent. It was already getting dark outside the window, and I turned on the desk lamp, casting a warm light on our faces. What now? Beatrice finally asked. Do you unblock the check? And there it was, the most important question to her. Not about how we repair the relationship, not about how to move forward, but about money. No, I answered. The check would remain blocked. Her face changed as if a mask had fallen, and I saw disappointment bordering on rage. So this whole check thing is just an excuse. You were never going to give Meth that money. I did, I said calmly. But your actions have shown me that it would be a mistake. You're not ready for that kind of money, Beatrice. It wouldn't solve your problems. It would only make them worse. Who are you to decide whether I'm ready or not? Her voice has risen again. You think you know best. You always have. I sighed. We were back to the beginning. The same accusations, the same anger. I've changed. My will, I said, deciding not to respond to her outburst. You will receive 5% of my estate. Theirest will be split between a trust for Ethan and Olivia with the stipulation that they can't receive the money until they're 30 and a fund to finance medical research. Beatrix stared at me wide-eyed, clearly not believing what she was hearing. You can't do this, she whispered. I already have, I replied. The papers were signed this morning. But why? She seemed genuinely shocked. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you, Beatrice. I've just made a decision that I think is right. Money should do good, not harm. I'm afraid that such a large sum will only do you harm. You cannot know that for certain, she exclaimed. You're just punishing me for telling you the truth, for daring to express my feelings. It's hook my head. It's not about punishment, Beatrice. It's just that I finally saw the situation for what it was. You and I have never understood each other. Perhaps we never will, and money won't help. She stood up with her fists clenched. Do you know where we're at? Rainer took out a loan against his business project, using our house as collateral. The project failed, and now the bank is threatening to foreclose. We could be out on the street. I'm sorry for your situation, I said, but it's the result of your own decisions. Rear knew the risks when he took out the loan. You knew who you were. Marrying, so you're just going to leave us in the lurch. Her voice shook with anger and despair. Your own grandchildren, too. Ethan and Olivia won't be homeless, I assured her. If you have to sell the house, I'll help you rent an apartment for a while, but no more than that. You must learn to live within your means. Beatrice looked at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. You're a monster, she whispered. A cold, calculating monster. Those words should have hurt me, but strangely, I felt only tired, as if our conversation, our relationship had all been a heavy weight I could finally shake off. Think what you want, I replied calmly. But I've made my decision, and I'm not changing it. She grabbed her bag and headed for the exit. At the door, she stopped and without turning around said, "You'll regret it. I should when you are all alone. When you realize that you lost your only family because of your pride and stubbornness, you will regret it." And with those words, she walked out, slamming the door loudly. I was left standing in the middle of the living room, feeling a strange emptiness inside. Not pain, not anger, not regret, just emptiness. It was as if something important was gone from my life, but at the same time, it was as if heavy shackles were falling off of me. The following weeks passed in a strange daze. I went about my daily business, met with Harris to finalize the formalities of the new will, and occasionally telephoned my old colleagues, but it all seemed mechanical, meaningless. A month after our conversation with Beatrice, I learned that she and Rainer had indeed sold the house and Carto pay off their debts. As promised, I helped them with renting a small apartment. Beatrice accepted the help, but she did it through Harris, not wanting to communicate with me directly. Ethan and Olivia called me a couple times, apparently at their mother's insistence, but the conversations were strained and short. They clearly didn't understand what had happened between me and their mother, but they could sense the tension and alienation. One morning, while going through the mail, I came across an invitation to a conference on pharmaceutical innovation. Normally, I ignored such things. After selling the company, I had consciously distanced myself from this field, but this time, something made me read the invitation more carefully. The conference was dedicated to the development of startups in the field of developing drugs for rare diseases. The very field I myself was involved in at the beginning of my career. The organizers were inviting me to give a speech and possibly become a mentor for young scientists and entrepreneurs. I put the invitation aside, but the thought of it kept me going all day. In the evening, I picked it up again, and after some thought, decided to accept the offer. Preparing for the performance took 2 weeks. I refreshed my knowledge, reviewed the latest research, contacted former colleagues for counseling, and every day I could feel something awakening inside me. Interest, enthusiasm, a desire to be useful again. The conference was a success. My presentation received positive feedback, and several young scientists came up to me afterwards to ask questions and seek advice. One of them, Liam Howard, particularly, impressed me with his project to develop a cure for a rare form of muscular dystrophy. "Mr. Weatherby, I would really appreciate it if you could review our business plan," he said. "Your experience would be invaluable to us." I agreed, and it was the beginning of a new phase in my life. I became a mentor to Liam and his team, and then to their startups. Not investing money directly, I left that for my foundation, but sharing experiences, connections, knowledge. One day, driving home after a meeting with one of these teams, I realized that for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. I had a purpose again. I was needed again. Not as a wallet, not as a source of funding, but as someone with experience and wisdom to share. The relationship with Beatrice remained strained. We saw each other only on the birthdays of our grandchildren, and then we exchanged only formal greetings. She got a new job as a manager in an advertising agency where she received a decent salary. Rainer also found a job, not as an entrepreneur, but as a salaried employee in a technology company. They lived more modestly than before, but as far as I could tell, they were getting by. The grandchildren, especially Ethan, started calling me more often. I learned that he was interested in chemistry after all, and was thinking about a career in pharmaceuticals. This filled me with quiet joy, though I tried not to show my feelings obviously. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I still thought about that fight at Beatrix's birthday party, about the $7 million check, about all the things that could have happened if my daughter and I had understood each other better. But I didn't regret my decision. It was the right thing to do for me and for her, even if she didn't realize it. Perhaps someday we can bridge the gap between us. Maybe time and distance will help us see in each other not what separates us, but what unites us. But even if that didn't happen, I knew I had found my path. I was no longer just a rich old man living off past accomplishments. I was Cassius Weatherby again, a man who houses his knowledge and experience to help others build the future. And in that, rather than in family connections or money, I finally found true wealth.